Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are today, whether seated in your home, walking through a park, or lying in a hospital bed, I want to speak to your heart. Not just your mind, not just your ears, but to that sacred place inside you, where your soul listens. You see, we live in a world that worships youth. We are constantly told that youth is beauty, that youth is strength, that youth is where the action is. But what the world doesn't tell you is that there is a sacred power in old age. There is a holy reverence to the later chapters of your life. Yet in this season, in this fragile, golden, holy season, you must be careful. Not just careful with your steps, your health, your appointments, or your medicine, but careful with your spirit, careful with your heart, careful with your relationships, and yes, careful with your soul. You see, old age is not the end of the story. It's the crescendo. It's the part of the song where the music swells and your life's melody comes into full view. It's where your wisdom becomes a lantern for others. It's where your choices echo longer than ever before. And it's where the enemy of your soul, loves to whisper, "You're finished." But that is a lie. You are not finished. If you're still breathing, God is still working. But here is why you must be careful. Because in old age, the temptations shift. In youth, the danger is recklessness. But in old age, the danger is bitterness. The danger is regret. The danger is apathy. And the most dangerous of all is losing hope. When your body slows down, it's easy to believe your life is slowing down too. But that's not the truth. I've met people in their 80s who are more full of life than those in their 30s. Why? Because they chose faith over fear. They chose forgiveness over bitterness. They chose to keep their eyes on eternity, not just on the mirror. Let me remind you of something today. Old age is not a curse. It is a calling. It's the final, powerful chapter in a book that still has so much to say. It is the time where your faith becomes a lighthouse for the generations behind you. It's where your love becomes a covering, your prayers become warfare, and your kindness becomes a testimony. But that doesn't happen automatically. That happens when you stay careful and intentional. Be careful not to let resentment take root. Be careful not to isolate yourself in loneliness. Be careful not to say, "What's the point?" Because there is always a point. There is always someone watching. There is always a soul in need of your voice, your story, your wisdom, and most of all, be careful to guard your heart. The world might forget you. The magazines may stop writing about you. Your children may move away. Your career may fade. But God has not forgotten you. In fact, some of His greatest work is done in the quiet years. When no one is looking. When the spotlight is dimmed. That's when your faith becomes pure. That's when your humility becomes rich. That's when your influence becomes eternal. The Bible says, "Even to your old age and gray hairs I am He. I am He who will sustain you." He didn't say, "I was with you in your youth." He said, "I am He." Present tense. Now, always. So be careful, dear one. Be careful to keep your hope alive. Be careful to forgive yourself. Be careful to love deeply. Be careful to finish well. Because there's one thing more powerful than starting strong. And that is finishing faithful. Don't let the fire die in your soul just because the years have added up. Fan the flame. Speak truth. Live bold. And walk with peace. Because the world may call it old age. But in heaven, they call it the final stretch before glory. As we grow older, one of the most dangerous things that can happen isn't something that strikes like a thunderbolt. It's not some calamity that crashes into our lives. It's a slow, subtle drift. A quiet drifting away from purpose. From meaning. from the calling that once stirred us when we were younger and full of vigor. Old age, in its deceptive calm, can lull the soul into thinking the race is already run, that the battles are behind us, and all that's left is rest. But that's not the truth. The truth is that many people in their later years quietly begin to feel invisible. They feel like life no longer requires their input. Their families grow up. Their careers slow down. Their health begins to whisper warnings. And in the midst of all this, something far more dangerous happens. They begin to believe they're no longer needed, that they've already given all they had to give. This drift away from purpose is a spiritual erosion. It doesn't happen with a bang. It happens with busyness, with passivity, with distraction. We exchange our bold convictions for comfort. We tell ourselves we've earned the right to coast. But no soul was ever called to coast. Every season of life has a purpose ordained by something higher than ourselves. Whether you're 20 or 80, you were created for a reason. And while the roles may change, the calling does not expire with age. What if Moses had quit at 60? What if Abraham had stopped listening at 70? What if your purpose actually grows in value as your experience deepens? Old age isn't a retreat from purpose. It's a refinement of it. This is the season where your voice, your wisdom, and your steadiness are needed more than ever. There are people behind you looking for guidance. There are younger souls who need to hear what you've learned, not in arrogance, but in humility. And there's a next chapter, waiting to be written if only you'd pick up the pen again. But to do that, you must be careful. Careful not to let the world's noise drown out your inner calling. Careful not to trade passion for passive living. You must resist the lie that says you're no longer a player in this game, that you've been moved to the sidelines. No, my friend, you are not on the bench. You are in the final quarter and the score is close. This is the moment when legacy is built. Not in youth, not in middle age, but in the twilight. This is where character is most tested, where your real impact is cemented. Will you be remembered as one who finished strong or one who faded out quietly? So be alert, be wise, and above all, be purposeful. You are still in the fight. Keynote 2. The Illusion of Safety and the Trap of Complacency. There's something about growing older that tempts us with the illusion of safety. You've lived long enough to have seen some things. You've made your mistakes, paid your dues. And with that comes a creeping belief that you've earned your way into a safe zone, a zone where risks are no longer required, where hard questions don't need to be asked anymore, where growth is optional, where you're no longer stretching, only surviving. That's a dangerous illusion. Safety is a mirage when it becomes your destination instead of your shelter. The idea that you've reached a place in life where you can no longer be challenged, tempted, or called higher, it's not just false, it's spiritually dangerous. Because it lures you into complacency. And complacency is not peace. Complacency is decay disguised in comfort. Some of the most destructive decisions people make in old age aren't outward, they're inward. It's the decision to stop learning, to stop loving deeply, to stop risking emotional vulnerability, to stop giving generously. It's the decision to shrink instead of stretch, to isolate rather than engage. And the worst part? No one may even notice on the outside. You might still go through the motions. You may still show up to dinners, family events, church gatherings, but inside, something is quietly withering. The fire that once burned with conviction has turned into a flicker. You see, there's a reason so many people in their later years face depression, bitterness, or cynicism. It's not because of age, it's because of disengagement. Because they've bought into the lie that their best days are behind them. But life doesn't end when youth fades. Life deepens. It becomes richer when we lean in, not when we back away. This is where you must be careful. You must guard your spirit against complacency, like you'd guard your house against a slow-burning fire. You may not notice the smoke at first, but over time it consumes everything. You must examine your heart regularly. Ask yourself the hard questions. Am I still growing? Am I still giving? Am I still fighting for what matters? Because here's the truth. Your later years can be your most powerful years. They can be the years where you mentor with clarity, where you live with depth, where you love with patience, but only if you resist the seductive lie of comfort. Think of the countless people who drift away in old age, not because they're tired, but because they've stopped seeing themselves as vital. As a result, the world misses out on their wisdom, their stories, their unique fingerprints. You are not here to fade away quietly. You are here to finish well. You must choose to be awake, fully alive, engaged in the moment. You must break free from the routine that numbs your heart. Shake yourself from spiritual slumber and say, "There's still more in me. I still have something to give." And when you live that way, when you choose growth over safety, when you embrace the uncertainty of purpose instead of the illusion of retirement, you'll find that your life speaks louder than ever before. Not just to your peers, but to the generations coming after you. And that, my friend, is a legacy worth leaving. There is an old proverb that says, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future." And while we often teach this to our youth, to be cautious about who they surround themselves with, the truth is, this wisdom doesn't expire with age. In fact, it becomes even more essential in old age. Why? Because your later years are not a time to drift into apathy or allow complacency to take root in your relationships. It is the season when your values are tested the most. Who you choose to allow into your inner circle can either nourish your soul or slowly corrode it. Youth relationships are about exploration, but in older age, relationships should become about reflection, legacy, and peace. You should not be in the business of tolerating toxic energy, manipulation, or superficial connection anymore. The stakes are higher. The time is more limited. Every hour you give to someone is time you cannot recover, and that means it's time to be intentional about who you give your presence to. You see, loneliness is one of the greatest plagues in aging. Many feel it silently, but that loneliness is not cured by just being around people. It's cured by being around the right people. There is a world of difference between someone who simply fills space in your life and someone who fills your spirit. The former can make you feel even more alone. The latter makes you feel alive. This is why discernment becomes one of the most critical virtues in old age. And discernment isn't about judgment. It's about alignment. It's about recognizing which relationships uplift your character and values, and which ones drain you, distract you, or dishonor the calling on your life. And you must not be afraid to walk away, even in old age. Some say, "But I've known this person for decades." And I say gently, but firmly, time does not justify pain. Just because a relationship is old doesn't mean it's right. A tree that has been rotting for 30 years still bears no fruit. Surround yourself with those who listen to you, not just speak at you. People who ask about your soul, not just your schedule. Friends who pray with you, cry with you, laugh with you, and inspire you to walk closer to truth. The greatest mistake we make is assuming our relationships are too set in stone to change in our later years. The truth is, nothing is set in stone except what we allow to be. And for those who are feeling the sting of betrayal or abandonment in old age, know this: it is not a reflection of your worth, but a revelation of their capacity. You did not lose someone who valued you. You lost someone who only valued what you offered them. Make room for people who see you not just for what you were, but who you are now and who you're becoming. It is never too late to cultivate meaningful friendships. In fact, some of the most beautiful, authentic relationships are born in the later chapters of life, when we are no longer performing, but simply living. So guard your circle. Love deeply, but choose wisely, because in the end, the people around you will either carry you closer to peace or pull you further from it. Keynote 4. Spiritual decline is subtle but devastating. You don't wake up one day and suddenly feel spiritually empty. You drift there slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a boat caught in a quiet current. You stop attending to the inner voice. You postpone the moments of stillness. You let the noise of the world replace the whispers of wisdom. And before you know it, you're lost, even though you're standing in the same room you've always been in. Spiritual decline in old age isn't usually loud or dramatic. It's subtle. It's the slow erosion of faith in the ordinary. It's the temptation to believe that because your body is aging, your purpose must be too. It's the lie that says, you've already lived your most meaningful days, and many believe it. They buy into the narrative that their spiritual relevance fades as their hair turns gray. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the later years of life may be the most spiritually rich years, if you stay awake. You see, wisdom is the gift of age,